Our next presentation coming up is by, well, we've got two people actually coming up. Wasn't quite. So Rosemary, who's going to come up, who is a parent of Bradley, am I correct? And Eileen, who has supported and worked with people with PWS for nearly 20 years. During that time, she has studied to improve her skills, training to provide the best residential home possible. So please welcome Eileen and Rosemary.
So thank you for letting us sort of be indulgent here and give a little bit of an information about preventing and managing meltdowns from our perspective. I have a son, his name's Bradley, he's 27 years of age. Did you note that not loud enough?
No, just
recording.
Video. Yep,
I have a son, Bradley. He's 27, going 28 years of age this year, and I did not mention that he has Prader-Willi syndrome. The reason I don't mention straight away that he has Prader-Willi syndrome is because he is a person first. We're all a person first, and he just happens to have Prader-Willi syndrome. That's really critically important, because I think one of the things that I've learnt, because in our family we have 3 children, we have Bradley, who happens to have Prader-Willi syndrome, we have Kathleen, who happens to be autistic, and we have Jason, who happens to be egocentric because he grew up with a autistic and a Prader-Willi person. So my observations of different people are that what you have to start with is the baseline, and the baseline is the person. The person has a personality first and foremost. From the personality, they also have a developmental behaviour. That developmental behaviour, for everybody in this room, changes as you age. As a kid, you act in one way. As a teenager, you could go through princess bitch face syndrome. Any of those things could occur. And then, of course, there's the Prader-Willi. So that's the icing on the cake. It just sort of makes it nice and goes, well, let's just chuck some candles on it as well, because we might as well, because it's going to be a challenge. So my philosophy when I found out that Bradley had Prader-Willi syndrome at 6.5 years of age was, I don't buy the full subscription. The same as Kathleen. I don't buy the full subscription to autism. So I'm the mother with tenacity. That means to say I'm the person who says I'm going to be with you, but I'm also going to be good enough to be better than you. Because self-control is better than situation control. And that's what we're talking about today with behaviour management. So for Bradley, what I recognised early was we had to start from a platform of loving him and giving him purpose. Too many times we hear, you can't do that. No, you can. You can do whatever you can do up to your capability. I'm not saying that somebody who's 6'5", that's my eldest son, can be a jockey. But whatever you can do to your capability and your whatever, you can do. So love and value and purpose are the key. With Prader-Willi syndrome, being isolated as the person with Prader-Willi syndrome is really different to being considered as a person who happens to have Prader-Willi syndrome. So it's really critical that you think of those when you're delivering care. I think the other thing that we've got to do is we talk about routine and structure. Can I just tell you, school's fabulous, care providers are fabulous, but as a parent, those kids, all of our kids, hold it together through those routine sessions. They get home and that's the trigger. So they've had a great day and they've worked hard and they've held it together, and they come home and they go, this is a safe space to fall apart. And that's a perfect example of a trigger for any of our kids, aka adults. So routine and structure is important, but more importantly, I decided that what I would do was create flexibility with Bradley. And flexibility was realistically about going, okay, you know what, Bradley, today we're having an adventure. When you do flexibility, you have to do certainty. So Bradley, I promise that you will get all of your meals today. You will have breakfast, you will have morning tea, you will have lunch, you will have afternoon tea, you will have dinner, you'll have supper. You will have all of those today. You just don't know when. But you will get all of them today. So when he did have to go and have surgery, and they put him on the end of the list, and he was panicking about not getting his meals, I said, I promise you will have all of your meals today. And when he came out of recovery, we let him have breakfast, we let him have morning tea, we let him have lunch, we let him have afternoon tea, and we went home for dinner. It works. But I think the real key is the flexibility so they don't become too rigid. What we did for a while, we had a menu for the weekly meals, and that just then became fixated on what I'm going to eat, what I'm going to eat next, what I'm going to eat next. And I think the next thing, of course, with the adventure and all the rest of it is balance. So you've got to be able to balance what the day-to-day activities are versus, with the food intake and the like, versus the special occasions. I have never, ever, 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 ever stopped my son from eating birthday cake. It could be the most luxurious birthday cake out, but he can have a piece of birthday cake. And the exclusion and the purpose and value, the exclusion for people with Prader-Willi don't get invited to parties because, people know that they're not supposed to eat that food. Well, you know what? No. We put our hand up, we said he can come to parties. And he gets his own plate and 5 items. You can choose anything off the table. 5 items, go for it. But you do have to you have to play the games, you have to participate in the activities, because it was about building hidden exercise. That was really valuable for Bradley because I set him up from an early age to be able to transition. Now, when we talk about love and value, his siblings moved out of home. His siblings got homes of their own. Kathleen lives independently. Come on in and find somewhere to perch. Kathleen lives independently. My eldest son, Jason, bought himself a home. And Bradley said to me, Mum, when do I get my home? And that was at about 18 years of age. And I said, oh, my God, you're too young. And, of course, he was very keen. So we put him to respite. He came home from respite and he said, Mum, I need you to do the paperwork for the government so I can go into a group home. And I went, Eileen, what am I going to do? And she says, funny you should say that. We've got a space available. And funnily enough, Bradley tromped on into care without any real transition problems. Now, that may have looked good, but that was all due to, and forgive me, I'm about to say something from my background, my history. We have a saying where I come from, and I've been in a paramedic situation for 35 plus years. Prior preparation and planning prevents piss poor performance. I live my life by that, and therefore it means that the transition to this, and you do actually manage to avoid a lot of trouble with arguments and so forth. Bradley's very controlled. When he does have a meltdown, I don't buy into the subscription that you can have it for a long time. You've got 10 minutes, get over it, and then come out with a smiley face. That's it. Kathleen was exactly the same. Trust me, her meltdowns are worse. But, that's the key, is prior preparation and planning prevents poor performance. I left a little extra piece out there. And I'm going to hand over to Eileen.
All right. Okay, I'm not going to go over all. We've just had all the triggers and the why-fors and how to handle them. So what I've done is I've put together the boys to tell you, I can only talk about residential care. This is my field, this is what I do, and this is what I love. These boys have come so far. So they're going to tell you the story of the house that was built just for them. And there they are, my monkeys. So, see, this has all been talked about. The biggest thing we have is routine planning, structure. Everyone knows that. And they know that we plan the whole week beforehand. We hardly ever have to change anything, but if we do, we give them warning. They plan their meals, but we give them a big folder with choice, which is all safe meals, but they still feel like they're in control of the food. So wherever I can create a place where they feel like they're controlling it, I will give them the choices. Oh, there he is. This is Bradley. Does the video play? It's got a video attached to it. Oh. I have got a stick. Can you put the stick in? Can you put the stick in? I'm so professional. Oh, because I want him to tell it. They love telling it. They love telling the story. You can see where we've had to cover things. When I first moved into the house, I had this great idea, and I put all these pictures up on the walls, and I put flowers over in the corner, and I made it homely. First meltdown, there goes the pictures. Second meltdown, then I thought, oh God, I'm going to have to remove anything that can be used for a weapon. So everything got removed. So it looks a bit bland when you come in, but why did we go back there? Did he change his thing? Oh, he's in control. Good, because I'm not. So we do it mostly through exercise. I have this theory that wear them out during the day. Make sure they come home and they're so tired, they're not going to play up. So you just sit there and you think, oh, I've got it all worked out. Got it? Okay. Oh, there he is. Volume.
First living area where we watch TV and stuff.
You can see it's very bland.
This is my first living area where we watch
I'm going to
TV
keep
and
going.
stuff.
You should go down. Me?
This is my.
It doesn't work from here.
Here we go. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
This is where the dining room. The dining. This is the second dining room and where we eat our meals.
He's going down the hallway again. Its hallway's not that long. So the kitchen's locked. And we keep the kitchen locked at all times. Meals are all prepared for the young men. And they choose their menu each week and decide what they want to eat.
Here's the kitchen. Which is locked.
Calorie counting I don't do. I don't calorie count. Everything's cooked from scratch. We have a really good menu. And I put a lot into... The kitchen the thing that they did wrong is they put this big window in the kitchen. So the boys would all line up like this. And I'd be trying to sneak in a bit of cauliflower or a bit of carrot to bulk it up with no, what are you putting that in there for? That's not in the recipe. And I think, oh God, here we go. So how do I go back? Go back? Go back. So they all have their own key. So their rooms are all locked, but they all have their own key, and then staff have a master key. So it keeps it private. If there is any outburst or one of them's having a meltdown, they're able to let themselves into their room. They have TV. He'll show you. They're very big rooms. Huh? This is where I live. Stick him in the room.
This is where I live independently.
Independently.
I've got my own space and I'm really happy with it because it's got my own ensuite.
They all have, each room has a bathroom. What would you do when there's a meltdown in the house? If somebody else is having a meltdown, what would you do?
I come in
Into your safe space.
here in my safe space, watch because I've got my own TV in here and my puzzles.
Now, next thing is exercise. This is my monkey. I don't know if you can see it, but he's got a glass of water on his head. He came in at 154 kilos. Last weigh in, it was 93.
Keep going, Nate. You're doing really well.
And there's a fish. That's the fish that bit him. He kissed it and put it back in the water, but it bit him before he put it in. This is our third one, Cade. Cade has developed his own little business, very independent here. He makes candles and he sells them. That's him making his candles. So you've got to buy these scented candles. I don't know if this shows you. There they all are. And he takes them to market and he sells them at a stall. They have a stall, don't they? Yeah. So it's keeping them busy. I think that's the main thing, is keeping them busy. And there they all are. And then we have Brittany. Brittany's for our behaviour support, and she's lucky we have the one person working with the three boys. So if ever there's a problem between them, she will sit the three of them down and do a group therapy. She gives individual every second week, and she has put a little bit on here,
As we all know, working
but we can't hear it.
all participants must be provided opportunities for choice and control. And for individuals with Prader-Willi, there are already so many choices and aspects of their life that are entirely out of their control due to restricted practices or limitations related to living in a shared accommodation setting with very limited funding ratios. And this is a massive barrier for individuals, particularly with Prader-Willi, who are unable to access the community safely without support worker assistance. Within PWS, some of the ways I try to provide opportunities for choice and control are having open and transparent discussions regarding restricted practices and any challenges that we're facing when appropriate. People with Prader-Willi have had restrictions related to food in essentially their entire lives. Having open discussions regarding restricted practices and having them attend the panels if possible, as well as just keeping them involved in conversations, can help them have their voice heard. I also like to try and create opportunities to set and work towards personal goals that aren't related to behaviour, because behaviour isn't everything. And some people have a very clear long-term goal that they are working towards already, such as getting a girlfriend or starting their own business. But other times it can be something small, like going to the gym every day or not missing any of their PBS appointments. I also like to utilise a tool like the Adolescent Adult Goal Setting Tool, the AAGST, which I've included an image of that in the slide there, just so you can have a bit of a peek of what it looks like. And it's an Australian developed resource from Autism Queensland, although it is validated for other neurodivergent people. And I find that it helps prompt discussion of potential goals across multiple areas. Often I don't utilise the entirety of the goal, I don't go through it super strictly, but I do utilise it as a starting point for more personalised goals to be identified. So it's just a discussion point. And the way that it works is that it has images of multiple different goals to help have that visual stimulus as well. And then someone can select whether, yes, they want that goal to be something they work towards, no, that's something they can do already, they don't need support with it, or if they're not sure, or they'd like to revisit it later. Asking for feedback, I think, is really important as well. So what do they feel is and isn't working? What do they want the people supporting them to know about them? How do they feel about the restrictions in place? And then validating those experiences while also providing education regarding why they're in place. Can they be involved in training in any way? How can we enable them to feel in control when there is so little control in their home? I've had some participants work collaboratively towards developing and delivering their own training package for support workers. So we've recorded it together, we've developed the resources together, and that includes the resources they have available that we have developed, being able to talk through what their support needs are, and then what their restricted practices are as well. And generally I found they've loved those experiences because they're able to be in the driving seat for a really essential part of their support, so they have some control there.
Yeah, all right. So we come down to the meltdown. That's never going to happen because we've done everything and they're perfect and they're set. We had a lovely day, we've been out. smash, there goes the window. But they don't break in this house. He throws another thing at it and it still doesn't break. And it has broken his ability to break the windows, so he stops trying. The house is so perfect. It's like 90% of the bad behaviours have disappeared because of the house, because the things he used to be able to do don't work. He punches a hole in the wall, doesn't work. The wall's too thick, and everything. But when I say that, we haven't had that now. We haven't had a bad meltdown. I think it'd been nearly 2 years because nothing worked, so we don't have the meltdowns. But when we do have an argument, I'll be listening, my ears work, and I wait for the tone to go up. And I've only got to go out and just nod if I'm not in the room with them. The only thing I worry about is safety, is keeping them safe, keeping staff safe. So the safety is they can go to their room. Bradley's really good. He can pick up the tone in the other one's voice and know he's going to go. So he's going to head straight into his room. The other one will stand there and argue back. But don't argue with them. It's a waste of time. It's a complete waste of time to get into an argument. And when they go up to that level, you're not going to reason with them, no matter what you say, no matter how many years you've been with them, no matter how many studies. How to prevent a crisis. This was my last study. There's 2 pages on how to prevent a crisis. None of it works. Because they're not thinking anymore. So you keep them safe, and then luckily, if they're right, you can talk to them the next day, maybe a week later, and they'll bring it up, and then you address it. Don't try to address it when they're melting. It's just too hard, and it doesn't work. Someone ends up getting hurt, and it's either a worker or themselves. But the house is so designed that they just take their key and take themselves into their rooms. And that's about it. If you have any questions? Yes?
Where's the house located?
At the Central Coast. We're up the Central Coast. Yeah.
How do you find, with the behaviour support practitioner, how do you find enough funding to implement all those strategies that she talked about in terms of, she talked about creating their own training video, for example, and that
They're very well funded, the boys, but when I say that, I think Brittany does a lot off her own back. Right. But when she comes, she always has something. She's so good with them, and it's so good because she works with the 3 of them, and it's not.
That could probably cut down.
Yeah, and it's not one person, it's the whole group, and you've got to get that whole group together, from management to support workers to the workers on the floor. And if you don't have that whole group working together, it falls apart. And as soon as we had a worker years ago, and I just think, oh my God, the boys are good with her. Why are they good with her? She'd take them out and give them a chip. So she'd go through McDonald's and drive through and get a pack of chips, and I thought, oh geez, they're good. And now I know if they keep asking for that one worker, something's going on. They've got you worked out, they've got you pinned. And like I say, I never worry if I have a new worker. If a new worker comes on board, don't worry about it. And someone will say, will they play? Well, no, they're not going to play up. They're going to sit there tonight and work you out and find your weak spot, and then tomorrow they're going to jump on you. Yeah, they know, because they're disabled, not silly, and they're very smart young men, and they work you out very quickly. But the meltdowns, I think you manage if you get to know them. You don't ever know the triggers properly. You can guess them, but if you get to know the tone of the voice, he comes home, his face might look a bit different, he's had a big day, he's cranky, and pick him up and say, well, we're not going to talk about anything today, we'll just get you home and give you afternoon tea real quick, because he's going to blow. But that's with knowing them and being the advantage of working with them for so long. So that's it. Anything else?
I'm just going to add to that, it's so hard when the staff aren't consistent.
Yes.
In-house, because it's the knowledge of people that work with them all the time, and it's the nuances.
Yeah.
The tone of voice, which you can't get across in a police.
No.
It's sort of a head that you can't get across in a police problem. That's the
And and the look on their face. I judge so much by the look on their face, and then I won't go to the next step.
And I think as well, as a practitioner, I take so much feedback from the people on the floor. You guys work with them all day, every day,
I think I'm lucky too because I've got the three boys that are there have got lovely parents that have done really well managing them. So they've come into care they came in young. Two of them came from school, and so they transitioned from that age. And the parent involvement's always been very high. So that helps. I think that really does help with the whole group thing together.
My question was, how did you select the boys to be together in that house? Was there a process, or did you have
no, I think a lot of thought goes into that, and I think with Prader-Willi, that's one of the main things is getting the right group together, because you're still going to have the arguments no matter how good they are. They will fight over that fly on the wall because they saw it first. So it's a really big thought process, and it doesn't just happen. We had the first one, and then Bradley came over for respite and he decided he liked it, so he moved in. And then I knew Cade from before a long time ago, and I thought, he'd be a good fit. And his mother mightn't think that now, but then we thought it'd be a good fit, and it's worked. It works. Yep.
I thought that the transition out of school was genius because even my daughter, when you change her environment, she can just change better. But was there much separation anxiety at that age?
No. Look, I'm a really big believer in doing it from school. If you do it from school, the parents are young enough that if they don't like the service provider or they're not happy with the care, they're young enough to get in there and fight for them and get them out of there or improve it, because sometimes it just needs someone that understands Prader-Willi better to work with them. The parents are still young enough then to have a bit of life, because this child has controlled their whole life. You know, the whole structure has been around this child, the needs and what they were. So you're still young enough to have a bit of a life. Once you know your child, you're giving me someone you've worked with for so many years, and I value that, because that is you've done so much to get them to that age. So, and I think if you prepare them, talk about it early, start to look around. It's not easy to find the right mix and the right place, but it does work. It just sometimes takes a bit of hunting.
Eileen, can I just add
Yep.
to what that question was? One of the things you've got to remember, and it's so easy to get caught up in the negative behaviours of Prader-Willi. Concrete thinking is negative. Well, actually, you can use that to your advantage, and that's exactly what we did. So once Bradley was in the house, his concrete thinking was, "This is my house." It's tangible. So there wasn't the anxiety, the separation anxiety. There wasn't any of that stuff. And it's about looking at what the behaviours are and flipping them, because there's a good and a bad side to every behaviour. Well, you can find it.
As a provider, you're talking about, a group of young guys there. Do you have a house of young ladies? Is there differences in how those might...
Interaction started with the first Prader-Willi house in New South Wales, and there's three of them. There's two males and a female, and they've been together for nearly 30 years. And they've gone through the ups and downs, but they're still together. They're getting to old age care now, is what they're getting close to.
Do they, is the house a registered SDA?
I think it was. I think that had to do with the funding, yeah.
My daughter's about to move into supported living, and the hardest thing, I think, is managing medical appointments and the mind shift that a parent needs to take.
Yes.
That the
Yes.
skill provider
Yeah.
really should take the lead in medical appointments because they're with them the most. And the parent, whether they're involved, how do you see?
I would just wean it off. I would wean it off, because you're going to struggle with feeling like you probably have guilt. You've looked after this child for so long, and all of a sudden you feel guilty that somebody else has taken your child, and then that's going to roll over. And I would wean it off. I'd go for one and then say, I can't go to the next one, Mum's late. And then it also gives you a chance to make sure he or she's been looked after properly. So you know that the medical things are all being followed through properly. It's up, just wean it off. Don't expect it to happen, because Prader-Willi, you can't do anything in a hurry. You've got to wean them off everything. Did you have a question?
Yes, you said it was really good to do that from school transition. Now, I've missed that boat with my daughter.
Can you? Well, I'd probably try and concentrate on getting respite somewhere. And
But
it,
hasn't
but it's,
I mean, we're also in an area where there are no sort of Prada Willy houses.
oh, it makes it hard.
Prada Willy house also terrifies her, like locked fridges, because we don't do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the options are. I don't even know what my
See, that's, yeah, no, but that's just my point about doing it earlier, is because now it's going to be so much harder for you to do because of her age and the change. Oh, but it mightn't have been around. You know, it's the services and the provision for Prada Willy is getting stronger and bigger every day. So it's getting that way where you will be able to find it eventually. There's now more companies building homes that have just Prada Willy homes. And then, you know, so eventually they will.
Do you think it has to be a specific Prada Willy home?
Yes.
Or it can't be a group home?
Look, that's how I worked a few years back. I helped a young Prada Willy boy that I'd worked with, and he was going to another service provider, and they put him in a house with 4 people, and this is when my change. They had 4 people, 2 Prada Willys, one that was underweight, so they would sit him down the end of the table with a pie, and then the other one was normal. So you'd get these 4 meals, and then our poor little Prada Willys were down this end with their lettuce leaf. He's up here with his pie. You're going to have that kid chuck on the chair, which he did, you know, and why? You know, why? It's just too hard, I think.
Do you think there's a good model in terms of how many work best together? I mean, you've got 3 in this house.
Oh, we have...
It depends on the individuals, I suppose.
Yes, it does, but the Germans have... how many, Damien? They have great... They have heaps together. Yeah.
But it really depends on the design of the home as well.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want too many people in a small space.
Yeah, they need the area to go to. They definitely do. And it would depend on the makeup of the clients involved, you know, and what they were... Yeah, the three's worked. It has worked so far.
The other thing I noticed is those bedrooms are really big.
They are really big.
They are not standard
No,
bedrooms.
no.
That's certainly a space
Yep.
where there was a desk and,
Yeah.
you know, like there was
That's how it was designed.
space.
That was
So I think
designed.
that's-
And it didn't show you the ensuite. They all have ensuite, so they have this beautiful big bathroom. No, it's huge.
But it's also designed for them to age in place pretty much. So if they had any difficulties with mobility down in
Yes.
it's all designed for accessibility.
Oh, John.
Yeah, our starting part was living in support of independent living. We've got a support provider who provides the staff. They have about 12 staff supporting it, which is like, we think it's way too many. And finding good quality staff. Like, how do you go about
That's the nightmare. That is the nightmare.
revolving doors?
Yes.
Forever training
Yes,
staff,
yeah.
coming and they're going. And like you said about the one who gave the chips
Yes.
and stuff like that, got no understanding of food and
No, that is the biggest problem. It's the nightmare. And you'll get someone that come in and they've had disability training. I've got this certificate and I've done that and I've worked with that one. And I think, now you've got to turn it all around and think differently, because these are Prada Willy and they don't respond to any of that. Can you chuck it out the window? You know, it's the hardest part. And then you'll get so many workers that come in and they just want to be there for their 8 hours and go home. And I haven't an answer, but if you get one, let me know. And 12 is a lot. I think we run on about 5 and a couple of casuals. Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard. It is really... The only thing I could say that if you're ever employing people, look for someone that has autistic experience. And they're coming in with autism behind them, and that helps a little bit, because some of the strands of Prada Willy are so much like autism. John?
Can I just say I just so much agree with those last comments. Certainly the biggest challenge in my life is supporting the team that supports
Yes,
the team.
yeah, it is.
I also just want to ask about these men, does their behaviour change in public?
No, they're good to take out. They're good to take out. We're lucky. Most of the time we do it one-on-one. If we take them out together, we're going to have trouble. But we always have another person there that can remove trouble, and he usually just goes home early. But they're good. No, they're good to go out because you've got them somewhere there looking at Coles and where they can get their chocolate bar. So, they're going to be good.
And that comes back to the boundaries though, doesn't it?
Mm.
We said earlier that setting boundaries are really critical. They know that in the house there are boundaries, but also as parents of all of the parents in this house understand what the boundaries are and support that happening.
Mm.
And so it's just seamless. We work collaboratively with the care providers to make sure that our family members are actually fine and dandy. Thank you very much.
Done it, dusted. One more?
Sorry, one last question. In terms of transitioning to Bradley, for example, to moving out, was it a sort of a sudden thing, or what, did you plan it?
No, it was a bigger shock for me
Yeah.
than it was for him. So for me, I went, I think I'll look at care at about 25. Yeah. I think I can let him go at about 25. I think that'll be good. And then he went for a respite and went, I want to go. I want to be the same as Jace. I want to be the same as Jace. It's always been about wanting to be the same as other people. He watches Home and Away. I just want to be the same as him. It's like, okay, mate, we'll make that for you.
Just on that moving in and that transition, I mean, you certainly had your own approach to how you brought up Bradley.
Yeah.
How did you find when the others particularly moved in? Did you, each family
They're different.
supports their person in different ways with different strategies and different routines? How did you find the kids adjusting or the adults adjusting?
No, they did. Well, I am lucky, but when I say that, the three families are totally different. But at the end of the day, they're three good families, and they've all come in with well-managed, definitely different. They were all brought up differently, but they've all been well-managed, and their part of Willie's been well-managed. So it wasn't hard to transition. And because they are focused on the food, once you get that routine up and they know, I swear to God, this kid can knock on the door at 3 o'clock and he knows it's afternoon tea time. 6 o'clock in the morning, he's knocking on your door. It's breakfast. His stomach knows when it's time. And you think, be quiet, it's not 6 yet. But because that's there and they have food security, they know they're getting it at that time, that anxiety's gone, the anxiousness disappears. And the food's not a problem now.
Say, what are your thoughts, or what are the general thoughts about houses with exclusively privately residents or mixed residents?
No, I don't like them mixed. The only way I think it might work mixed if you had a disabled person that was on a strict diet. You know how sometimes they might be on a strict diet through health? So you might have a Down syndrome child that is struggling with health and has to be put on a strict diet. So they're going to have the same sort of food because of the strict diet, and that's the only thing I would attempt.
Just to add to that, we've got one model where that's the case, almost, where the restrictions or interventions are very similar to the resident in front of it, and so that fairness and quality doesn't come into it, so there's no triggers relating to that, so it's working quite well. Okay, just to follow up on that. So, I've got a daughter who's 18. She's got a 16-year-old brother who eats as much as everybody else in the house combined.
The poor sibling.
And so she eats less than everybody.
Yes.
But she's okay with it. So.
But you've probably brought her up like that, so she's grown up right from the start. So you think it's
it took a while for her to get used to it, because at the start, her brother and she ate the same amount.
Yes.
And it wasn't that way. So when that happened, it took a little bit of time to convince her it was the right thing to do. But right now, she's okay with it. She knows what she's going to get.
light and easy. The rest of the family has home cooked meals. And then her, when she moves out in about a month, she'll have her own studio, but she'll be encouraged to socialise with the main house, which is not part of it. So I don't know how it's going to work yet, but she has grown up knowing she is different and has a different diet. And I'm hoping that the light and easy will keep her, she can choose that. And then, you know,
That's what the German doctors do. They actually have them in units where they drop off the day's supply of food.
yes, that's
They can choose, if they choose to sit down and eat it all day, it's gone, but the food's dropped off every day, and they really push for that independence over there. Damien went and seen them, and that's what they do. So and they're successful with it, with some of them. I think you'd have to have the right one.
I think in their model, there's differences of how restrictive they will be depending on on the person's ability. So if somebody's maintaining that control and they're doing well, that's fine. But then if they slip, the model might change, and they might move to another model, or they might, they swap it around where it becomes a bit more restrictive until such time as they can reduce the restrictions again.
at home we have a locked pantry, but Molly had her own fridge
Yes,
and a cupboard.
yeah.
We would have a week's supply of food. But we started noticing a little bit of, fiddling, claiming that the containers weren't full or whatever. So we made it to a day's supply, and that seems to be working.
Yes.
And in the unit, I think we'll do a day.
Yeah.
Build it up to a couple of days, and then if we see problems.
Yes, yeah. And that's what they do.
I think the main thing that they always say in those models is, you can be as least restrictive as a person can cope with, and that can be almost fully autonomous. However, you still need to monitor. What you can't do is just take that for granted and say, no, they're perfectly within the healthy weight range. They're very well at controlling their diet, and there's never going to be a problem.
Yeah.
If you get that type of mentality, that's when it can
gonna be a
slowly
problem.
go wrong without you realising. So you've got to be ready to keep an eye on it and rein it back as soon as you find that things start to go the wrong way. Or and communicate and discuss it.
So you're relying on the house manager to have that spidey sense.
Exactly, yeah. You have to, and if it starts, you need to start communicating with them to say, look, I've noticed, or, present it as hard as that is, to then say, this is what will happen if we can't manage this. Yeah, so there's a sort of responsibility that goes along with that independence.
I just want to add on to what Danny said. I worked with somebody that they didn't have lots of cupboards. They had a food order that was done morning and by staff, and so that was how it was monitored. And they knew that their food was being monitored in that way, but so it was up to them to what was and all that sort of stuff. And that worked really well for a while. But again, it comes down to staff. Then became a lot of staffing changes. The audits were being done really consistently, so we started here. I didn't think anyone would notice. The audits were getting done every 3 days, which by 3 days they don't know if there's 6 bananas left, 3 bananas left. Like it boils out from there. So this person now has full restrictions. We've had to wind it right back, and then we're going to. The goal is to move back.
Do you think that creates anxiety on them trying to control it? Do you think you're going to put too much pressure on them trying to control it?
The food security around that, absolutely. But if they're wanting to do that and we're following our practices,
Oh, yeah,
required
okay.
to under quality and safeguards,
Yeah,
so
okay.
it's restricted and
Where's that written on the bottom?
But it's not everybody that in that instance with this person, they acknowledged that it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And for them, the anxiety was less around if the staff are there supporting and doing the audits, and that gives her the security that there's always going to be food there when she needs it, and that she can, because she is about that wanting to be independent. She wants to show
Yes,
that she
it's
can
fair
use
enough. Yeah.
independence. And it was just unfortunate in this case that it fell apart again through no fault of hers, because she had
Staff let down. Yes, yeah. It's really heartbreaking when the staff let down, because then you think you've done so much work, and then you come in and you think, oh, why did you do that? And it's not their fault, it's because staff have slipped or they haven't followed the routine, yeah. It happens.
No more questions?
That's it.
Well, I've only got a comment. If you can't get your parents to understand it, how do you get support workers to really understand it quickly? Right? It's not something that happens overnight.
No, it takes a long time. And it depends on how keen they are to learn too. It depends on the person. If they really want to understand it, whether they just want a job, really. All right.